Trajan, how to set up and play. To set up the game, you'll first set up each player's board. You'll take 2 action markers and place them in each of the 6 action dishes. You can do it random, or you can configure it as you like, as long as it's done before the Trajan tiles are shuffled. You'll put the Trajan marker in the Roman numeral 1 section, and then each player will have all their workers and one large one. You'll take one large one and a small one and place it into the military camp, and then you'll take one small one and place it into the construction camp. You'll also have a marker on the score track and on the Senate track. Randomly determined start player, and the start player will be on the bottom, and then going clockwise you'll put the other markers on top. I'm setting this up for a 2-player game. Next, you'll take the green back tiles, those are the forum tiles, and the orange back tiles, these are the extra action markers. For the orange back ones, you'll always place 3 into the orange bordered areas. And for the green back ones, the forum markers, you'll fill the columns based on the number of players. So I'm setting this up on a 2-player game, so I'll fill up these 2 columns. You'll also put green back tiles on each of the territories out here with the green borders. Lay out the 3 ship tiles, blue side up, and then lay out all 20 of the construction area markers. Shuffle these and lay these out randomly. Next, you'll shuffle each of the 6 different types of Trajan tiles. Shuffle these. Next, you'll draw 2 of these yellow tiles out of the draw bag. Create a supply of the +2 action markers. And then create your draw deck. Shuffle all of the cards and then have them in a main stack, and then draw the first 2 off the top of the stack to create 2 different discard piles. Next, you'll put the time marker tile on the start space based on the number of players you're playing with. So we're going to use this track for a 2-player game. And then you're also going to take your demand tiles, these are the circular green ones. You're going to shuffle them, randomly remove 3 from the game, and then you're going to be left with 12. So I like to just keep them organized with the 4 rounds of the game, 3 each. The final part of setup is starting with the start player and then going clockwise. Each player will draw a bonus tile from the bag. They'll draw 3 starting commodity cards. They can take from the top or from the discards. If someone takes from the discard, the top will always automatically refill there. So they'll get 3 cards, and then they get to start with 3 Trajan tiles. They have to go into the 2 slot, the 4 slot, and the 6 slot, and they have to come from, they have to be different. So they have to pick 1 from the 6 different types of stacks. They can't pick 2 from the same stack. So each player, starting with the start player, will do all 3 of those things. A bonus tile, 3 commodity cards, and 3 starting Trajan tiles. And then going clockwise, every player will do that for themselves. Play goes clockwise. So starting with the start player, each player's turn goes in 3 different phases. The first phase is a player will take all the action markers from a single dish and then place 1 in each subsequent dish, and then where they place the last one, that's where they will take the action. So if they select all the ones from this dish, they'll put 1 there and then 1 there. They can choose which color to place in each one, and since this is where they're placing the last one, this is the action that'll take. If they had, let's say they had 7 action markers here, they'd have to just keep going around and then even double stack, and then that's where they would have the action. So the first part of a player's turn is I'll allocate. What I like to do is just put them here, and then before you slide them in, that reminds you that you have to move the time marker based on the number of action markers selected. So since this player selected a dish with 2 action markers, this is going to move up 2. 1, 2. Then you can slide them in. Before I slide this one in, it kind of reminds you that the second phase is you look to see if a Trajan tile can be fulfilled. If all the markers in the dish, if at least 2 of them match the colors on the Trajan tile, then it's fulfilled. So you can see we have a green and a white here, so this will get fulfilled. So that's the second part of a player's turn. You immediately score the victory points on the tile and go up the score track, and then you'll take the indicated bonus. So in this example, blue player would immediately get 4 points. This tile would get discarded, and then they would get the bonus. And in this case, it's a +2 action marker that they can immediately place on any one of these actions. So let's quickly go over the 6 types of Trajan tiles. The first one, remember, they all give you immediate victory points. And this one will let you either put 1 or 2 workers into the construction camp. That's the orange circle. This one lets you put 1 or 2. This specific tile lets you put 2 workers into the military camp. That's this one. We saw that this one gives you a +2 bonus tile that you place on your board. This one gives you 2 cards. They have to be from the draw deck. You can't take discards, but it gives you 2 immediate cards from the draw deck. This gives you 9 victory points immediately. And this one gives you a permanent demand that you're meeting for the people. This is the only Trajan tile that doesn't get discarded. These, when fulfilled, get placed on your board, and as we'll see at the end of the round, it gives you the permanent ability to at least meet one of these demands. If on a player's turn there is no Trajan tile in the indicated spot, or the color requirements haven't been met, you simply skip that second phase and move to the third phase of a player's turn, and that's when you can push that action marker in, and then you get the action. And there's 6 actions that can be taken, so let's go over each one now. So the first type of action is the forum action. This allows the player to take 1 available tile that's in the forum. You can take one of the 3 action markers or one of the available ones. Now remember, when a player takes it, they don't get refilled until the end of the round. So once they're taken, they're gone until they get refilled. But you can take one of these. Here are the different types of tiles you might find. You might find additional actions. If you take an additional action off the market, they get placed on this portion of your board. There's the 3 different types of demands that need to be met. These get placed in this section. These are the temporary demands. Remember, this is where the Trajan tiles go. You can get extra votes in the Senate. Those get placed there. And then there's different types of wild cards. So this would give you a wild of any of the demands. So you can stack them there, and you can choose when and how you'd like to use it. This gives you a wild card that we'll see how those work later. You can put those there. The wild demands go there. This gives you a wild action. So those act like having a tile here. And then these give you a wild construction tile. So at the end of the game, you get points if you can get 3 or 4 of a single type, and this would act as a wild for endgame scoring. So these are the different types of tiles you might find in the forum. Let's cover the military action next. So when you take the military action, you actually get 3 options. You can move one of your people from your player board, and you can put them immediately in the military camp, and they serve as a legionnaire. So the military action could allow you to do that. That's one of the options. Instead, You may move your leader to an adjacent province, and you get to take the tile if there's one there and place it on your player board. So this is your leader tile. You can see the provinces, you can see the green dash here, or they can move to adjacent tiles. If you decide to move your leader to an adjacent province, you immediately get to take that tile. The third option you could do is you can immediately move one of your workers here to where your leader is and score victory points. Now they don't have to be adjacent, so let's say your leader moved all the way over here on subsequent turns. The third option is I'm going to move this military person to where my leader is, and then they would get 6 victory points in this example. You score victory points equal to the province less 3 victory points for every other legionnaire that's already there. So if the red player already had a red military person here, and then the blue one added it, they'd get 6 minus 3. And so it's for every other one, you're going to have to deduct 3 down to 0. And multiple players can obviously have multiple military people there. It's only 1 per player. So once the blue player adds 1 here, they cannot add any more there and keep scoring the victory points. It's only 1 per color. So to recap, the military action lets you do one of 3 things: add a legionnaire from your player board, or move your leader to an adjacent province, or move a legionnaire to where your military leader is and score the victory points. The next action is the Senate action. Basically, when you take that, you get to move your marker up 1 space. You immediately score the victory points, so you'd get 2. If on a subsequent turn I took the Senate action again, I'd get 3 points this time. And this is also helping me get votes at the end of the turn towards earning my choice of those. If a player took a subsequent Senate action, they simply go on top there. And this will actually serve as the tie break if we were tied at the end of the round. Whoever's on top wins ties for all players in the same spot. The next action is the Trajan action. This allows you to pick one of the 6 available tiles. You've got to pick the one that's on top of the stack, and you place it immediately where your Arch of Trajan is currently. So if I took that action, I could select anything I want. I'm allowed to have duplicates of the same kind. It's only during setup that I have to pick unique ones. And then the Trajan moves clockwise to the next available spot. If I had Trajan tiles on everything, then it would just simply move into the middle until one became vacant through fulfillment. If I've got a Trajan tile on everything and this is in the middle, then I have to pass that action if this is the dish I took. But in this case, it would just move clockwise and go there, and the next time I took a Trajan action, this is where the Trajan tile would go. The next action is the construction action. You have 2 options when you come here. You can either move one of your people to the workers' camp, or you can move one of your workers that's already in the camp to a tile on the board. When you take this for the first time, you can move them anywhere, and then you immediately take that tile and you place it on your player board. If you can collect 3 of these, they're worth 10 points at the end of the game. If you can collect 4 of any one type, those are worth 20. When you place your first one, you also immediately get to take the bonus action associated with it. So if I was to collect another one of the first time one I collect, I get to take a Senate action. The next time I get one of these types and place it here, I don't get the bonus action. It's only when you place the first one you get the bonus action. Once you already have a worker out here, let's say I had another one, the next one I place has to be orthogonally adjacent to this one. So either here, 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 or here, and I get to take that tile. If the red player was taking the action, they could come here, but obviously I already took the tile, but it might get them into position to take a construction tile that they were interested in. Also, when you take a construction tile, you'll notice each one has victory points. Those get scored immediately on the score track. The final action is the Seaport Action. You actually have 4 choices here. Your first one is you can draw 2 cards from the face down stack. You're only going to get to keep 1, but you draw 2 and you can add them to your hand, and then you can discard any 1 card from your hand to one of the 2 discard piles. The second option for the Seaport Action is you can select 1 of the 2 cards in the discard stack and just immediately add it to your hand. So in the first option, you get to draw 2 from the top of the stack, but you've got to discard 1, so you only get to keep 1. The second option is you can just immediately take 1 of the 2 cards, and remember, this will automatically refill. The third option with the Seaport Action is you can play cards to your tableau. You can play 1 or 2, up to 2 of your cards, just simply face up in your tableau here. So I might play these 2 cards face up in my tableau. By doing that, I get to draw the same number of cards I played from the face down stack only. I don't get to take from the discard. So if I play 2 cards to my tableau, I get to draw 2 cards from the face down stack. The fourth option with the Seaport Action is maybe instead of drawing cards, I can basically ship commodities to one of the available ship tokens on the board. So I can play up to 6 cards here, and let's say I play all 3 of these. These are 3 non-equal, so that would satisfy this ship. So since there are 3 unique cards or 3 non-equal, I would immediately score 6 victory points. The ship would get turned over to the gray side because a player has used it this round. Other players can fulfill, but you'll notice the victory points are reduced. Cards that are used, commodity cards that are used to meet a ship requirement, are played face up in my tableau just like the other cards, and these are worth endgame bonuses if I have bonus tiles based on the types of commodities that I've collected. So the 3 different types of ships, you can play equal cards, so you could play up to 4 cards of the same type, or you can just play 1 card for 2 points. If you play 4 of the same type, you can get up to 20. We saw this one, you could play up to 4 unique cards. These are the same. These would be unique for points, or you could play pairs of non-equal cards. So if I played 2 unique pairs, I could get 10 points. 3 unique pairs, if the ship was still face up, 15 points. So those are the 6 main actions. On a player's turn, when they're taking the main action, if they've collected a bonus action tile here, they may choose to spend it, but it has to match the action that they were taking. So if they took the forum action, they could only spend a bonus forum action tile, and they get an additional action based on what they have here. So if they discarded a tile here, let's say they had this, and they just took the forum action, since they have a forum action tile, they can discard this and get 1 additional forum action. Normal rules apply. If they had a Trajan Arch, you can see that they added a +2, so they would get 2 additional actions based on this tile that they discarded. But to use this, they would have had to have originally taken the Trajan Action. When you take the bonus action, they get discarded. This +2 always stays there. So as you collect more action tiles for this one always gives you 2 additional actions versus the base that's printed on the board, which is 1 additional bonus action. So let's talk about the end of a quarter or the end of a round. When on a player's turn they pass or land on this arrow, we reveal a demand tile. So let's say a player took an action that took 3 action markers. 1, 2, 3. What you do is take one of the 3 demand tiles. I'd like to just kind of place it there, and that reminds you that once this player has completely finished their turn, we're going to reveal one of the demands that must be met at the end of the year. So once this made it around again on a player's turn. And once they finished it, we'd reveal it. It makes it around again. We reveal the final demand tile. So now we know at the end of the year, these are the 3 demands that must be met. They happen to be unique, but you could have a year where the people want food or religion or games. Now, once the 3 are revealed, players still have time to try to meet these demands. Once this makes it around again and either lands there or there, that'll signify the end of the round once the player completes their turn. And then once that happens, we'll go through the end of round procedure. Once a player triggers the end of a quarter, it's called, I like to turn the Trajan tile or the Trajan arch just down so we know which player triggered it, because then once we're done with the quarter, play will continue clockwise after the player that triggered it. So 3 things happen at the end of the quarter. All players see if they can fulfill the demands of the people, either through permanent tiles or by discarding temporary tiles. So in this case, we see that they want religion, food, and games. So I've got 1 permanent game, so I don't have to discard this. I've got 1 permanent religion, but you can see I have no food, no wild that I could discard. So based on what you're not able to fulfill, you're going to lose victory points. So if you can't fulfill 1, each player that can't fulfill 1 of the 3 is going to lose 4, 2 of the 3, 9, and if you can't fulfill any of the 3, you're going to lose 15 victory points. One rule is that if you do have a tile to discard, you have to discard it versus losing the victory points. You can't choose to lose the victory points if you could have met the demand. So let's say that people had demand for 2 games this round. I could use this permanent one to satisfy 1, and I'd have to discard this one to satisfy the other. So after all players have evaluated whether they can fulfill the demands of the people, next we go to the balance of power in the Senate. Each player will take their total number of votes based on the marker. So blue has 3 votes, red has 2 votes, plus any temporary ones they have on their board. So you can see this gave red an extra 3 votes. So 2 plus 3 gives them 5 total votes. So they win the balance of power in the Senate. Whoever has the most votes gets their first choice of tiles. If there's a tie, it's who's ever in front on the track. So let's say the red player didn't have the extra Senate votes. They're on top here, so they win the tie. They get their first choice. Let's say they take this one, and then whoever is second in the balance of power will get the second tile, but they're forced to flip it to the gray side, the less powerful side, and add it to their bonus tiles. It's important to realize that this will get discarded. In fact, you're not allowed to keep these from quarter to quarter. So if you have one, you're forced to discard it, even if you didn't even need to use it to win the balance of the power. That gets discarded at the end of every quarter. And the final thing we do is we'll reset all these discs back to the starting space based on the number of votes. So the number of votes goes on top. If nobody used any extra Senate tiles, it would normally go like this. Blue had the most votes, but we remember red had a bonus Senate tile they discarded, so they actually had the most votes. So that's how it'll get stacked for the next quarter. If nobody takes any Senate actions, red is in a position to win the tiebreaker here. So the third part of the end of quarter is just cleanup. So you'll remove these from the game. They were part of the first round, so those will get removed. And now we're ready to start the second quarter. You're going to clear all markers from the forum and refill based on setup. So in a 2-player game, we'd add 3 yellow tiles here, and we'd add 6 green tiles here. You're also going to fill any missing tiles if the province is completely empty. So this province has a missing tile, but you can see it has at least 1 pawn in it, where this one is empty. So this one would actually get a new face-up tile from the draw stack. You're also going to flip up any ships that may have gone used from the previous quarter. So we refilled tiles there that were missing. We refilled the forum. And the final thing is we'll draw 2 new bonus tiles from the bag. and now we're ready to go to the next quarter. If this was the end of the fourth quarter, we would complete the end of the quarter phase as normal, but now we would proceed to endgame scoring. Endgame points are added to your current position on the score track. You'll get 1 point for each unused commodity cards, basically cards in your hand that you weren't able to get to your face-up tableau are 1 point each. Any unfulfilled Trajan tiles still on your board are 1 point each. Any workers in the worker camp that weren't able to get out here are 1 point each. And each legionnaire still in the military camp that weren't able to get out to a province are worth 1 point each. You can score victory points if you've collected at least a set of 3 or 4 of the construction tiles. If you have a set of 3, it's worth 10 points. If you have a set of 4 of one type, it's worth 20 points. So if you could get a couple sets of 4 each, and that would be pretty valuable. 2 sets of 4 would be 20 plus 20 for 40 points. And then the last thing we score are your bonus tiles. So you'll get bonuses based on points for each of these things satisfied. So in this example, I got 2 points for every cattle commodity card I had face up in my tableau. So I only had 1, so that's 2 points, plus 2 points for each of these grain icons, which I had none of. And this was 3 points for each yellow bonus tile I had, which was 1, so that's an additional 3 points that I'd add to my score. Here are the main types of bonus tiles. Most of the bonus tiles are going to give you points for each matching commodity card that you have face up on your board. Remember, the gray side is just less powerful, so less victory points. This gives you points for every bonus tile you still have on the face up side or the yellow side. This gives you a point for every worker you actually have out on a construction site. The less powerful version is a half point, so it requires 2 workers to get, for every 2 workers you'd get a point. Here's 2 points for every legionnaire you actually have out in a province. And this one, there's tiles here that match the different types of demands. You would get 9 points if you have at least 1 unused demand tile at the end of the game. The Trajan ones don't count. You'd have to have 1 of these unused. It's not for each. You'd get 9 if you have at least 1 unused. So after you add up all your points for the bonus tiles, either the yellow or the gray side, you'll add those to your score track, and most points win the game. If there's a tie, it's the player who has the higher position on the center track would win the game. And that's everything you need to set up and play Trajan.